The skies above the ruined city burned with an eerie, crimson glow as the alien dreadnought loomed overhead, its shadow casting a suffocating darkness over what remained of humanity's defenses. The ground trembled with the rhythmic thud of the alien infantry, their metallic forms advancing in perfect synchronization, weapons gleaming with unnatural light. To the invaders, this was just another step in their campaign of annihilation. To the defenders, it was the beginning of the end. Captain Alina Korova crouched behind the twisted remains of a transport vehicle, her breath fogging in the frigid air. Her squad, battered but unbroken, huddled close around her. The tension was palpable, the air thick with the smell of burned metal and ozone. This was not the first time the alien force, known as the Varric, had attacked, but it was the first time their forces had shown such overwhelming numbers. "Alina, they're flanking us," whispered Jonas, the squad's sharp-eyed scout, his voice barely audible over the distant booming of artillery. "If we don't move now, we're done for." Alina's mind raced, her heart pounding as she assessed their dwindling options. The Varric were relentless, their strategies impeccable, their resources seemingly infinite. And yet they had a weakness, a blind spot that humanity had learned to exploit time and again. They underestimated the power of collaboration. "We're not done yet," Alina said, her voice firm. "Jonas, relay the signal to the western outpost. We need backup. Get the other squads moving. They won't see us coming if we hit them from all sides." "The western outpost?" Jonas hesitated, his expression skeptical. "That's 2 miles of open terrain. Even if they respond, they'll never make it in time." "They'll make it," Alina replied, her eyes steely, "because we'll hold the line until they do." The squad moved with practiced efficiency, their trust in Alina overriding their fear. She was a leader forged in fire, her reputation built on impossible victories. As they repositioned amidst the rubble, her calm crackled to life. "Captain Korova," a voice called out. It was Commander Reeves, the regional leader of Earth's resistance forces. His tone was grave, his words heavy with urgency. "We're seeing heavy Varric movements across the entire sector. They're consolidating. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything." Alina tightened her grip on her weapon, her resolve hardening. "We're already acting, Commander. Send every squad you can spare. We're gonna give them a fight they'll never forget." The next few minutes were a blur of chaos and adrenaline. The Varric pressed forward with mechanical precision, their lines unbroken despite the Resistance's desperate counterattacks. Energy blasts lit up the battlefield, carving through the rubble like lightning. Alina's squad fought valiantly, their movements synchronized as they worked to slow the enemy's advance. But the Varric were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. Just when it seemed the line would break, a distant rumble caught Alina's attention. She turned toward the horizon, her heart skipping a beat as she saw the impossible. A wave of resistance fighters, their makeshift vehicles and weapons glinting in the fiery glow of the battlefield, surging toward the enemy's flank. "The outpost came through," Jonas said, his voice filled with awe. "Of course they did," Alina replied, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Now let's make sure they have something to fight for." The Resistance's reinforcements hit the Varric with a force that could only be described as ferocious. What the humans lacked in technology, they made up for in determination and unity. Squads from different factions, once fractured by mistrust and old grievances, now fought side by side, their collective strength overwhelming the alien invaders. Alina's comm buzzed with updates from across the battlefield. The Varric were faltering, their rigid tactics unable to adapt to the Resistance's unpredictable and coordinated assault. It was a sight that filled her with hope, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons, but in its ability to come together in the face of insurmountable odds. As the battle raged on, Alina found herself locked in a deadly duel with a Varric commander. The alien was massive, its armor gleaming like obsidian, its movements precise and deadly. But Alina fought with the ferocity of someone who had everything to lose. Every strike, every parry, was fueled by the memories of those who had fallen, and the determination to protect those who still stood. In the end, it was not her strength that won the fight, but her ingenuity. Using a detonator she had scavenged from the battlefield, she lured the Varric commander into a trap, the resulting explosion reducing it to a smoking heap of metal and fire. The tide of the battle shifted, the Varric retreating in disarray as the Resistance pressed their advantage. By the time the sun rose over the battlefield, the once dominant invaders had been driven back, their forces scattered. Alina stood amidst the ruins, her body battered but her spirit unbroken. Around her, Resistance Resistance fighters tended to the wounded and celebrated their hard-won victory. It was a moment that would be etched into history, a testament to the power of unity in the face of overwhelming odds. But Alina knew this was just the beginning. The Varric would regroup, and the war was far from over. Yet, as she looked out at the sea of faces, each one filled with determination and hope, she felt a spark of belief. They had shown the Varric that humanity was not alone. They had shown them the strength of unity, and they would show them again as many times as it took until the invaders learned the lesson that would ultimately be their undoing. Because together they were unstoppable. The victory at the ruins of New Haven, as the battle came to be called, sparked a revolution across the resistance. Word spread like wildfire to distant outposts and underground cells. Groups that had once fought in isolation began to reach out to one another, their fractured efforts coalescing into a single, unified force. For the first time in years, humanity had hope. Alina found herself at the center of this movement, her name becoming synonymous with the resistance itself. But with this newfound prominence came new challenges. Leading a unified resistance was a far cry from commanding a single squad. It required diplomacy, strategy, and a level of resolve that pushed her to her limits. The council meetings were the hardest. Leaders from various factions, military veterans, political exiles, and even former corporate magnates brought their own agendas and grudges to the table. Alina quickly realized that unity was not just about fighting a common enemy. It was about finding common ground, even when it seemed impossible. One such meeting took place in the underground base beneath the shattered remains of Paris. The room, dimly lit and crowded with holographic displays, was filled with voices raised in argument. "We can't afford to stretch our forces any thinner," one leader said, slamming his fist on the table. "If we keep trying to liberate every outpost, we'll lose everything. And what do you suggest we do?" Another shot back. "Leave our people to die? Abandon entire sectors?" "Alina, what do you think?" Aaron asked, his tone calm but firm. As always, he acted as a stabilizing force in the chaos, his presence grounding her when she felt overwhelmed. Alina took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping across the room. "We can't save everyone," she said, her voice steady but tinged with regret. "But we can give them something to fight for. If we target the Varric Central Command Network, we can disrupt their operations across the entire region. It's a risk, but it's the only way to turn the tide." Her words hung in the air, the room falling silent as the leaders considered her proposal. Finally, one by one, they nodded in agreement. It was a fragile consensus, but it was enough. The mission was set into motion with a level of coordination that had once seemed impossible. Resistance cells across the region worked together to gather intelligence, sabotage supply lines, and prepare for the assault on the Varric's command hub. It was a monumental effort, a testament to the strength they had found in unity. As the day of the mission approached, Alina spent countless hours in preparation. She trained with her squad, studied the enemy's movements, and made contingency plans for every possible scenario. But despite her meticulous planning, she couldn't shake the gnawing fear that something would go wrong. The mission began under the cover of darkness. The resistance forces moved like shadows, their movements precise and coordinated. Alina led the main assault team, her squad tasked with breaching the heavily fortified command hub. Other teams provided support, creating diversions and clearing the surrounding area. The initial approach went smoothly. The resistance fighters used their knowledge of the terrain to evade detection, their movements synchronized with the precision of a well-oiled machine. But as they reached the outer perimeter of the hub, the Varric's defenses came to life. Turrets emerged from hidden compartments, their energy blasts carving through the night. The resistance fighters scrambled for cover, their carefully laid plans unraveling in an instant. "Alina, we're pinned down," Jonas shouted over the comm. "We need to fall back." "Negative," Alina replied, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We push forward. Stick to the plan." Her words were met with hesitation, but her squad trusted her enough to obey. They advanced in bursts, using the terrain to their advantage, their weapons cutting through the Varric's defenses with relentless determination. Inside the hub, the battle intensified. The resistance fighters moved through the labyrinthine corridors, their progress slow but steady. Alina led the way, her instincts honed by years of combat. Every decision, every movement was a calculated risk. They reached the central command chamber, a vast room filled with alien technology and pulsating lights. At its center stood a Varric overseer, its towering form radiating authority. It turned to face them, its voice a deep, mechanical growl. "You dare to challenge the Dominion," it said, its tone dripping with disdain. "Your defiance is meaningless." Alina raised her weapon, her gaze unflinching. "Maybe," she said, "but we're not fighting for you to understand. We're fighting for each other." The clash that followed was brutal and and unrelenting. The resistance fighters fought with everything they had, their movements driven by desperation and hope. The Overseer was a formidable opponent, its strength and precision surpassing anything they had encountered before. But the resistance had something the Varric did not: unity. As the Overseer fell, Alina activated the charges they had planted throughout the hub. The countdown began, the seconds ticking away as they fought their way to the extraction point. The final explosion was deafening, the shockwave reverberating through the air as the command hub was reduced to rubble. The resistance had done it. They had struck a blow that would ripple across the region, a testament to the power of their unity. But the cost was staggering. The battlefield was littered with the debris of war, and the faces of the fallen were etched into Alina's memory. Back at the base, the mood was a mix of triumph and sorrow. The victory had given them hope, but it had also reminded them of the sacrifices required to achieve it. Alina stood before her team, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "We've shown them what we can do when we stand together," she said. "But this is just the beginning. The Varric won't stop, and neither will we. As long as we have each other, we'll keep fighting, and we will win." The cheers that followed were fierce and defiant, a declaration of their unwavering resolve. The Varric had underestimated humanity, but they would learn. And as long as there was even one voice to raise the call, the resistance would endure. The Varric's retreat in the wake of the hub's destruction sent ripples of change across the galaxy. The Dominion, once believed to be an unstoppable force, now seemed vulnerable. Resistance cells on other worlds began to rise up, inspired by humanity's defiance. Messages of solidarity and support flooded in from across the stars, creating a network of allies who shared a common goal: freedom. For Alina, the victory was bittersweet. She had led her team to success, but the cost weighed heavily on her. The names of the fallen were etched into her memory, a reminder of the sacrifices required to achieve even the smallest progress. She spent her nights poring over maps and reports, planning their next moves while grappling with the burden of leadership. It was during one such night, in the dimly lit command center, that Jonas approached her. His usually sharp eyes were clouded with concern. "You can't keep doing this to yourself," he said, his voice quiet. "You're carrying too much." Alina didn't look up from her work. "I don't have a choice," she replied. "If we stop, even for a moment, they'll crush us." Jonas placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm but gentle. "You're not alone in this," he said. "We're all here because of you. But we can't do this if you burn yourself out." She finally looked at him, her expression softening. "I know," she said, "but every decision I make feels like a gamble. Every move we make costs lives. How do I live with that?" Jonas sat beside her, his gaze steady. "You live with it because you're fighting for something bigger than yourself," he said. "And because you're not doing it alone. We're with you, Alina, every step of the way." His words stayed with her as the resistance prepared for their next mission. The Varric had regrouped, consolidating their forces around a massive installation deep in the mountains. Intelligence suggested that this facility was a critical part of their operations, housing not only weapons and supplies, but also a research lab dedicated to developing new technology. The mission was unlike anything the Resistance had attempted before. It required coordination on an unprecedented scale, bringing together fighters, engineers, and strategists from across the galaxy. Alina's role was pivotal, her leadership the glue that held the operation together. As the day of the assault approached, the tension was palpable. The Resistance forces gathered in the shadow of the mountains, their numbers bolstered by allies from distant worlds. Among them were the Arath, a race of telepathic beings whose abilities had proven invaluable in gathering intelligence. Their leader, a tall, willowy figure named Caleb, stood beside Alina as she addressed the assembled forces. "Today, we stand together," Alina said, her voice carrying across the crowd. "Not as humans, Arath, or any other single people, but as allies united by a common cause. The Varric think they can break us, that they can divide us, but they're wrong. Together, we are stronger than they could ever imagine. And together, we will win." The cheers that followed were deafening, a chorus of voices from countless species united in their resolve. Alina felt a surge of pride and determination as she led the charge, her forces moving like a single, unstoppable entity. The assault began with a series of calculated strikes on the Varric's outer defenses. Resistance fighters and their allies worked in perfect harmony, their movements synchronized and precise. The Varric responded with their usual efficiency, but for the first time, their rigid tactics faltered in the face of the Resistance's unpredictability. Inside the facility, the battle was brutal and chaotic. Alina led her team through the labyrinthine corridors, their progress marked by fierce firefights and narrow escapes. The Varric's advanced technology was a constant threat, but the Resistance fighters adapted quickly, using their ingenuity and resourcefulness to counter the enemy's advantages. At the heart of the the facility, they discovered the research lab, a sprawling chamber filled with alien machinery and glowing consoles. The air was thick with the hum of energy, and the walls pulsed with an otherworldly light. It was here that they encountered the Varric's latest creation, a towering war machine designed to crush any resistance. The machine was unlike anything they had faced before. Its armor was nearly impenetrable, its weapons devastating. But Alina refused to back down. She directed her team with precision, their combined efforts chipping away at the machine's defenses. "We need to find a weak spot," Jonas shouted over the comm. "There," Caleb said, his telepathic abilities pinpointing a vulnerable joint in the machine's armor. "Focus your fire there." The team rallied around his guidance, their coordinated attacks exploiting the weakness. The battle was fierce, every moment a test of their resolve. But in the end, their unity proved to be the deciding factor. The machine fell with a deafening crash, its massive frame collapsing in a shower of sparks and debris. Alina and her team wasted no time, planting charges throughout the lab before making their escape. The explosion that followed was visible for miles, a fiery testament to the Resistance's determination. The Varric's facility was reduced to rubble, their operations in disarray. Back at the base, the mood was triumphant. The Resistance had struck another critical blow, their unity proving once again to be their greatest strength. Alina stood before the gathered forces, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her features. "We've shown them what we can do," she said, "but this is just the beginning. The Varric think they can divide us, but they're wrong. Together, we are unstoppable, and together we will win." The cheers that followed were louder than ever, a deafening affirmation of their resolve. The Varric had underestimated humanity and its allies, but they were learning the hard way that unity was a force to be reckoned with. In the weeks following their victory at the Varric research facility, the Resistance's momentum only grew. What had started as a fractured rebellion on a single planet was now a galaxy-wide movement, uniting species that had once viewed each other with suspicion or indifference. The Resistance's message was clear. Together, they could stand against the Dominion and reclaim their freedom. But as their influence grew, so too did the Varric's desperation. Reports flooded in of brutal reprisals against civilian populations on occupied worlds, entire settlements wiped out in a matter of hours. The Dominion's tactics became increasingly ruthless, their aim to crush the Resistance's spirit through fear and intimidation. For Alina, the news was a dagger to the heart. She had always known that their fight would come at a cost, but the scale of the Varric's atrocities left her reeling. She spent sleepless nights in the command center, poring over reports and maps, searching for a way to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. It was during one such night that Caleb approached her. The Arath leader moved with an almost ethereal grace, their glowing eyes filled with quiet understanding. "You carry a heavy burden," Caleb said, their voice a soothing melody. "But you must remember, Captain, that you are not alone." Alina sighed, her exhaustion evident. "Sometimes it feels like no matter what we do, it's never enough," she admitted. "The Varric just keep coming, and every victory feels like a drop in the ocean." Caleb placed a hand on her shoulder, their touch light but reassuring. "Every drop creates ripples," they said, "and those ripples can become waves. You have already changed the course of this galaxy, Alina. Do not underestimate the power of what you have built." Their words gave her a renewed sense of purpose. She called an emergency meeting of the Council, determined to turn their growing unity into a decisive advantage. The meeting took place aboard the Arath flagship, a massive vessel that served as both a command center and a symbol of their alliance. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered in the ship's grand hall, their voices filling the air with a mix of urgency and determination. "We cannot continue to fight on the Varric's terms," Alina said, her voice cutting through the noise. "If we keep reacting to their moves, we'll always be one step behind. It's time to take the fight to them." Her proposal was met with a mix of support and skepticism. Some leaders worried about the risks of a full-scale offensive, while others argued that they had no choice but to act. "The Varric have shown us who they are," Alina continued, her gaze sweeping across the room. "They believe they can divide us, that they can break us, but we have proven them wrong. And now, we have the chance to strike a blow that will change the course of this war." Her words sparked a heated debate, but in the end, the Council agreed. They would launch a coordinated assault on the Varric's central command station, a massive installation that served as the nerve center of their operations. The mission required every resource, every ally, and every ounce of courage they could muster. It was a gamble of unprecedented scale, but it was also their best chance to end the war. As the Resistance forces gathered in the void of space, their fleets arrayed against the backdrop of distant stars, Alina felt a surge of emotion. The sight was breathtaking, a testament to the power of unity in the face of tyranny. The final battle began with a coordinated assault on the station's defenses. The Varric fought with their usual precision and ruthlessness, but the resistance had become a force to be reckoned with. Ships from dozens of species moved as one, their combined firepower overwhelming even the Dominion's formidable defenses. Inside the station, Alina led the ground assault, her team tasked with disabling the station's central control systems. The corridors were a labyrinth of alien technology, every step a fight for survival. But the resistance fighters moved with purpose, their unity giving them strength. As they reached the station's core, they encountered the Varric's supreme commander, a towering figure shrouded in an aura of menace. Its voice was a low, resonant growl as it addressed them. "You have defied the Dominion for the last time," it said. "Your unity is a fragile illusion. It will shatter as all things do." Alina raised her weapon, her gaze unflinching. "You're wrong," she said. "Our unity is our strength, and it's something you will never understand." The clash that followed was nothing short of epic. The commander was a formidable opponent, its power and skill pushing Alina and her team to their limits. But they fought with everything they had, their movements coordinated and precise. Every strike, every parry was a testament to their unity. In the end, it was not strength or technology that won the fight, but the collective will of the resistance. Alina's team worked together to exploit the commander's weaknesses, their combined efforts overwhelming even its immense power. As the station's systems began to collapse, Alina activated the charges they had planted. The countdown began, the seconds ticking away as they fought their way to the extraction point. The final explosion was a sight to behold, a blinding flash of light that marked the end of the Varric's dominance. The resistance had achieved the impossible. They had struck a blow that would resonate across the galaxy for generations. Back aboard the Arath flagship, the mood was a mix of triumph and relief. The Varric's central command was no more, their forces in disarray. For the first time in years, the galaxy had a chance at peace. Alina stood before the gathered forces, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her features. "Today, we have shown the galaxy what unity can achieve," she said. "The Varric thought they could break us, but we have proven them wrong. Together, we are unstoppable. And together, we will build a future where no one lives in fear." The cheers that followed were a deafening affirmation of their resolve. The Varric had underestimated the strength of unity, and they had paid the price. And as Alina looked out at the sea of faces, each one filled with hope, she knew that this was just the beginning. Because unity was not just a strategy, it was a force, and it had changed the course of the galaxy forever. The Varric's defeat at their central command station was more than just a military victory. It was a turning point in the galaxy's history. With their leadership decimated and their forces scattered, the Dominion began to collapse under the weight of its own hubris. Worlds that had lived in fear for generations rose up in defiance, their courage reignited by the Resistance's example. For Alina, the aftermath of the war was a time of both triumph and reckoning. She had spent so long fighting, so long focused on survival, that she hardly knew what to do with peace. The galaxy was free, but it was also fractured, its people scarred by years of oppression and conflict. She returned to Earth, now a beacon of hope for the galaxy, and found herself drawn to the ruins of New Dawn City. The once battered metropolis was now a thriving hub of activity, its streets filled with life and laughter. But the scars of war remained, etched into the very fabric of the city. As Alina walked through the bustling market square, she was greeted with smiles and nods of gratitude. People recognized her, not just as a leader of the resistance, but as a symbol of the unity that had saved them. It was a humbling experience, one that reminded her of the responsibility she carried. Aaron found her sitting on the edge of a fountain, her gaze distant as she watched children playing nearby. "You've done something incredible," he said, sitting beside her. "Alone, I wouldn't have accomplished anything," Alina replied. "It was everyone, the Arath, the resistance, every person who chose to stand up and fight. And they chose to fight because of you," Aaron said, his voice steady. "Because you showed them that unity is worth fighting for." Alina smiled faintly, but her thoughts remained heavy. "Now we have to build something worth that fight," she said. "And that's a different kind of battle." The task of rebuilding was monumental. The resistance transformed into the Alliance for Unity, a coalition dedicated to restoring peace and prosperity across the galaxy. Alina found herself at the forefront of this effort, her leadership once again proving indispensable. She traveled to distant worlds, meeting with leaders and civilians alike. On each planet, she heard stories of resilience and hope, of people who had found strength in their darkest moments. It was a reminder of why they had fought and why they had to keep going. On one such journey, Alina visited a world that had been on the brink of annihilation during the war. The settlement was small but thriving, its people rebuilding with a determination that mirrored her own. alone. She stood before a crowd of settlers, her voice carrying across the plaza. "The fight we endured was not just for survival," she said. "It was for a future where no one is left to stand alone. A future where unity is not just our strength, but our foundation. Together, we have proven that even the darkest nights can be overcome. Now, it's time to build a dawn that will never fade." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the hope that had been rekindled. Alina felt a swell of pride and gratitude, knowing that their sacrifices had not been in vain. As the years passed, the Alliance for Unity grew, its influence reaching every corner of the galaxy. Former enemies became allies, their shared experiences forging bonds that transcended old divisions. The galaxy began to heal, its wounds gradually fading as its people worked together to create something new. For Alina, the journey was far from over. She continued to lead, her vision guiding the Alliance through its challenges. But she also found moments of peace, moments where she could step back and reflect on how far they had come. One such moment came on the anniversary of the Varric's defeat. Alina stood on a hill overlooking New Dawn City, the skyline now a symbol of resilience and hope. Beside her stood Caleb, their glowing eyes filled with quiet satisfaction. "It is a beautiful sight," Caleb said, their melodic voice carrying on the breeze. "A testament to what we can achieve when we stand together." Alina nodded, her gaze unwavering. "It's a reminder that we're stronger together," she said, "and that as long as we hold onto that, nothing can stop us." Caleb placed a hand on her shoulder, their expression serene. "You have done more than led, Alina," they said. "You have inspired, and that inspiration will echo across the stars for generations to come." The words stayed with her as she descended the hill, the city's lights guiding her way. She thought of all they had lost, all they had endured, and all they had gained. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was free, and that freedom was worth every sacrifice. Because the Varric had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, its unity, and that unity had not only won the war, it had forged a future where hope could thrive. As Alina walked through the streets, greeted by faces filled with gratitude and determination, she knew one thing for certain: the story of their unity was far from over. It was just the beginning. In the years that followed the fall of the Varric, the galaxy underwent a transformation that few could have predicted. The Alliance for Unity grew from a coalition born of necessity into a thriving interstellar community, its member worlds bound not by fear or conquest, but by a shared commitment to cooperation and progress. Alina remained at the forefront of this movement, her leadership evolving to meet the challenges of peacetime. The transition was not without its difficulties. Old rivalries and new disagreements threatened to fracture the Alliance, and the scars of war left deep wounds that could not be healed overnight. But Alina faced these challenges with the same determination that had carried her through the darkest days of the war. She worked tirelessly to mediate disputes, to foster understanding, and to remind the galaxy of the unity that had saved them. Her efforts earned her the respect and admiration of countless people, and her name became a symbol of hope and resilience. One of her most significant achievements came in the form of the Unity Accord, a landmark agreement that established a galactic council dedicated to ensuring peace and stability. The accord was signed on the anniversary of the Varric's defeat, a poignant reminder of the price they had paid to reach this moment. The signing ceremony took place in New Dawn City, now the capital of the Alliance for Unity. Representatives from every member world gathered in the Grand Hall of the Unity Tower, a towering structure that symbolized the Alliance's aspirations. As Alina stood before the gathered assembly, her voice steady and clear, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. "Today, we take another step forward," she said, "not as separate worlds, but as one united galaxy. We have shown that our differences are not a weakness, but a strength, and we have proven that when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot achieve." Her words were met with thunderous applause, a chorus of voices that echoed through the hall. The signing of the Unity Accord marked the beginning of a new era, one defined not by conquest, but by collaboration. For Alina, the ceremony was a moment of profound fulfillment. She had dedicated her life to this cause, and now she could see the fruits of their labor. But she also knew that the work was far from over. The galaxy was vast, its challenges complex, and its future uncertain. There was still much to be done. As the years passed, Alina continued to lead, her vision guiding the Alliance through its growing pains. She mentored a new generation of leaders, instilling in them the values of unity and resilience that had defined her own journey. And she found moments of joy and peace, moments where she could step back and marvel at the progress they had made. One such moment came on the 50th anniversary of the Unity Accord. Alina, now in her later years, stood on the balcony of the Unity Tower, overlooking a galaxy that had been forever changed. The stars shone brightly in the night sky, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. Beside her stood Caleb, their presence as serene as ever. The Arath leader had become one of her closest allies, their friendship a testament to the bonds that had been forged through struggle and sacrifice. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Alina said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. Caleb nodded, their glowing eyes reflecting the starlight. "It is a sight that would have seemed impossible not so long ago," they said. "And yet, here we stand." Alina smiled, her gaze distant. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. Caleb placed a hand on her shoulder, their expression gentle. "The future is never certain," they said, "but what you have built, what we have all built, is a foundation that will endure. As long as there are those who believe in unity, this galaxy will shine." Their words filled her with a sense of peace. She had spent her life fighting for this moment, and now she could see the legacy they had created. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was a place of hope, a place where unity had triumphed over division. As Alina looked out at the stars, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the people who had fought beside her, for the sacrifices that had made their victory possible, and for the future they had built together. Because in the end, the Varric had been right about one thing: unity was fragile. But they had underestimated its power, its resilience, and its ability to grow stronger in the face of adversity. The galaxy was a testament to that strength, a shining beacon of what could be achieved when people came together for a common cause. And as Alina took one last look at the stars, she knew that their story was far from over. It was a story that would continue to unfold, written by the countless voices that had risen in unity. A story of hope, of resilience, and of the unbreakable bond that had changed the course of history. And as long as there were stars in the sky, that story would endure. In the decades that followed, the Unity Accord became more than just an agreement. It became a way of life. Worlds that had once been isolated and divided were now interconnected, their people sharing knowledge, culture, and innovation. The galaxy thrived in ways that had once seemed impossible, a testament to the power of collaboration and understanding. Alina's role in this transformation became the stuff of legend. Stories of her leadership, her courage, and her unwavering belief in unity were told and retold across the stars. Children learned her name alongside the names of their planets and their constellations, and monuments were erected in her honor on countless worlds. But Alina herself remained humble, dedicating her later years to mentoring the next generation of leaders. She believed that the true measure of their success was not in the battles they had won, but in the future they had built, a future where unity was more than an ideal, it was a reality. On the centennial of the Unity Accord, a grand celebration was held on Earth, the birthplace of the Resistance. Leaders from every corner of the galaxy gathered in New Dawn City, their presence a testament to the Alliance's enduring strength. The city was alive with color and music, its streets filled with people from every species and walk of life. Alina, now retired from public life, attended the celebration as an honored guest. She moved through the crowd with a quiet grace, her presence drawing smiles and nods of respect. Though her hair was streaked with silver and her steps slower than they had once been, her spirit remained as strong as ever. As the festivities reached their peak, Alina was invited to speak. She stood before the gathered crowd, her voice steady and clear despite the weight of the moment. 100 years ago, we stood on the brink of annihilation, she said. The Varric sought to divide us, to break us, but we proved them wrong. We stood together, and we built something stronger than any one of us could have imagined. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. The galaxy we have today is not perfect. It is a work in progress, a journey we are all on together. But it is a galaxy of hope, of resilience, and of unity. And as long as we hold onto those values, there is nothing we cannot achieve. The applause that followed was thunderous, a roar of approval that echoed through the city. Alina felt a swell of emotion as she looked out at the faces before her, each one a testament to the journey they had taken together. That night, as the celebrations continued, Alina found herself standing beneath the stars, her thoughts drifting to the past. She thought of Jonas, Aaron, Caleb, and all the others who had walked this path with her. Some were still with her, while others had become part of the history they had written together. "You'd be proud of this," she said softly, her words carried away by the breeze. Of all of it, Caleb approached, their presence as serene as ever. "They are proud," they said, their voice gentle. "As am I. You have given this galaxy a gift that will endure for generations." Alina smiled, her gaze lifting to the stars. "It wasn't just me," she said. "It was all of us. Together." Caleb nodded, their glowing eyes reflecting the starlight. "And it will always be together," they said. "As long as there are those who believe in unity, this galaxy will shine." The words filled her with a sense of peace, a quiet contentment that came from from knowing they had done something truly extraordinary. As she stood beneath the stars, surrounded by the celebration of a galaxy united, she knew that their story was far from over. Because unity was not just a moment in history, it was a legacy. And as long as there were stars in the sky, that legacy would endure, lighting the way for all who followed. The galaxy was theirs to share, theirs to protect, and theirs to build. And as Alina turned to join the celebration, her heart full of hope, she knew that the best was yet to come. As the night of celebration drew to a close, Alina lingered on the balcony of the Unity Tower, gazing at the stars that had guided her journey. The sounds of laughter and music drifted through the air, a reminder of the joy and life that had flourished from their struggles. She thought of the young leaders she had mentored, the alliances she had helped forge, and the countless lives that had been touched by their unity. The galaxy was not without its challenges, but it was filled with possibilities, each star a symbol of the hope that had carried them forward. Caleb joined her, their presence a familiar comfort. The stars seem brighter tonight, they said, their voice a gentle melody. Perhaps they are celebrating with us. Alina chuckled softly, her gaze never leaving the horizon. Or perhaps they're a reminder, she said, that there's still so much to explore, so much to learn. The journey is far from over. Caleb nodded, their expression thoughtful. And that is what makes it beautiful, they said. The journey itself, the connections we forge, the challenges we overcome, the future we create together. Alina turned to them, her smile warm. Thank you, Caleb, she said, for walking this path with me. It has been my honor, they replied, their glowing eyes filled with quiet pride. And it will continue to be. As they stood together beneath the starlit sky, Alina felt a deep sense of peace. The galaxy was vast, its future unwritten, but it was a future they had fought for, a future they would shape together. Because in the end, unity was not just their greatest strength, it was their greatest legacy. And as long as the stars shone in the sky, that legacy would endure. And so, beneath the infinite expanse of the cosmos, a new chapter began, one of hope, resilience, and the unyielding power of unity. A story that would inspire generations to come, a testament to what could be achieved when people stood together. A story that would never fade.